What is up, my friend? Amyx here, and I'm a life coach who helps hungry leaders create their best life, navigate the challenges of marriage, heal from past pain, and experience more joy. And in this video, I'm going to be diving deep into a subject that just really isn't often discussed much, but it affects so many people, which is toxic shame. So we're going to explore what it is, how it's different from healthy shame, and what steps you can take to heal from it. And if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell icon so you never miss out on any of our weekly videos that we're dropping here. That being said, let's get into what is toxic shame. Well, toxic shame, unlike regular shame, is a deeply ingrained and debilitating emotion. In fact, according to Dr. David Hawkins, it's the closest frequency to death on his scale of consciousness. So it's really no wonder that people don't want to experience shame or be with their shame, or they're unconsciously finding ways to bypass or cope with it. And what a lot of people don't know is that toxic shame is often associated with the negative self-image and really kind of undervaluing oneself. It's not just about feeling bad about what we did, it's about feeling bad about who we are. Now, this is a huge distinction here. You see, toxic shame, it can stem from various sources like childhood trauma, abusive relationships, or societal pressures, but that is just scratching the surface of where toxic shame stems from. See, the problem is toxic shame is so deeply internalized and unconscious that most people often aren't even aware that it's there, or how it's influencing basically every single action that they're taking and the reactions that they're having to their everyday lives. So let me give you an example of how sneaky toxic shame can be. See, I grew up in a blue-collar redneck home from East Texas, and I was the first guy in my dad's family to go to college. And all the men on my dad's side of the family, they were into construction, hunting, and fishing. And over the past 2 years, I've done a personal deep dive into my own shame. My wife's journey with her cancer really kind of helped surface a lot of it for me. And I basically kind of had two options. I could accept anger and chronic depression as my norm, or I could get curious about how I could create my best life. And so I chose to do the latter. And over that 2-year period, I stumbled across a book called Healing the Shame That Binds You by John Bradshaw. It's an amazing book, and I must warn you, if you're not mentally strong, that book can you up if you're not careful. Now, what I mean by that is once you see how deeply shame runs in your own life and the lives of your family and friends, you're not going to be able to unsee it. Now, the good news is once you untangle your own shame, you're free to be you. And the bad news is it can be intense. At least that was my experience. And I suppose it could be gentle. So I'm not saying it has to be hard or that it has to be intense. It is a possibility though. But here's the thing. My grandfather, he was a very stout, righteous Church of Christ guy. My dad growing up was like this pot-smoking little rebel when he was in his 20s. He's a great guy though. Salt of the earth, will always be there for you type of guy. He was and still is just an amazing provider, protector type of guy. And his work ethic to this day will just run circles around many 20-year-old dudes. And then you have me. I'm sensitive, I'm intuitive, I'm gentle, I'm strong, I'm courageous, I'm gritty, I'm tenacious. Spiritual. I'm a bit of both of my grandfather and my dad, and a whole lot of me, which is vastly different than both of them. You know, I'd say I'm a lot more home in my own feminine energy than maybe they are because I'm super artistic, I'm creative, I'm super flowy. It's almost like they're this very warrior archetypes and I'm almost maybe very magician. And I'm not saying that I'm not a warrior and they aren't magicians, because they are magicians in their own right and I'm a warrior in my own right. What I'm just saying here to make a distinction here is my magician seems to be a lot more online than theirs. And shame is sneaky. See, biologically, for a family unit to survive in the tribe, the family unit could not carry too much toxic shame. If the family unit did have too much toxic shame, the entire family unit would be kicked out of the tribe. And if the family unit was kicked out of the tribe, well then the family unit was more than likely to die. So what happened is somehow we humans created a way for us to unconsciously create shame homeostasis inside of that family unit. Meaning unconsciously, when we are born, we will take on a role that offsets the amount of toxic shame that the family unit is carrying around. So in my case, I had the overly righteous grandfather and the rebel dad, and this created a way of being in me that was like be highly responsible and do the right thing at all costs. Like this is what's gonna offset the shame and make sure we keep the shame homeostasis intact. Now, I didn't know this growing up. And once I did a deep dive on my own shame and I started to look back on my family life, I can totally see how deeply shame played a role in my life and how I behaved as a child and even into my early adulthood. Now, toxic shame is completely, absolutely differently than healthy shame. But the question is how is it different? Well, healthy shame acts like a moral compass. It helps us recognize like when we've made a mistake or hurt someone, and it ultimately drives us to correct our behavior. Now, healthy shame, it helps reminds us of like that we are limited beings, that we're not gods, that we're just ordinary people living ordinary lives. However, toxic shame is different. See, toxic shame is not about what we've done, it's about who we are. Healthy shame says, I made a mistake. Toxic shame says, I am a mistake. Can you see the difference here? Can you even feel the difference? Huge, right? Now, the first is about the action and the second is about the person. So let's move on to the most important part of this. How can you actually heal from your toxic shame? Well, there isn't a one-size-fits-all answer, but there are some steps that can help. The first thing I want you to do is acknowledge it. The first step is to acknowledge its presence. If you constantly feel like you're not good enough or that you're flawed, it's time to recognize that toxic shame might be at play here. The only way I know how to heal toxic shame is to expose it to ourselves and to other people, because toxic shame is the stuff that we've been hiding from. It's the stuff that we don't want anyone else on the planet to know about because we're deathly afraid of who we'd be if it was revealed. And this, my friend, is the trap of toxic shame. So what are you to do if exposing it is the way to heal it? Well, that brings us to the second step, which is to seek professional help. Like reach out to a mental health professional or to an amazing life coach, go to a retreat, because these types of people, they can provide you with the strategies and the techniques to manage and overcome the fears that are tied to your toxic shame. Step 3 is all about practicing self-compassion. I want you to be gentle with yourself. Practice self-compassion. Replace the negative self-talk with affirmations and kindness. You know, a big part of self-love is the fully accepting yourself just as you are. But another part of self-love that I overlooked for a lot of years was encouraging yourself. Now, this is super important because if you're relying on others for encouragement, you're ultimately going to become codependent, and that's basically the opposite of being free. So remember to accept yourself just the way you are and encourage yourself along the way. Now, step 4 for about healing here is all about connecting with others. I recommend that you connect with others who understand what you're going through. Support groups can be incredibly healing for this. Some Facebook groups could do the job as well. And the last step here, challenge the shame. Remember, you are not your mistakes. You are not your past. You are deserving of love. You are deserving of respect. You have nothing to prove, nothing to defend. You are perfect, whole, and complete right here, right now. And I want you to remember, healing from toxic shame, it can take time, it can take some patience. And sometimes it takes no time at all, but know that it's 100% possible to heal all of your toxic shame, and you do not have to do it alone. That's gonna do it for today's video on toxic shame. If this resonates with you or if you've been through the healing journey, let me know what you think in the comments below. Share something that stuck out for you from this video, or share your story because it might inspire someone else who's going through something similar. If you found this video helpful, share it with a friend who needs some encouragement, and please hit that subscribe button. And until next time, my friend, I'm out. Peace.